us something. Give us something. Generations are counting on us. Give us something that can last 2 more days. 2 more days. Whenever revival breaks out, part of the dividends, part of the signs, part of the signatures is that there will be a heightened consciousness of God in that space. The activity of sin and the attack of Satan and all of the lieutenants that work in tandem with that kingdom is to continue to deaden your consciousness to the presence of God. The more conscious of God a man is, the more strength he wields in the realm of God. Because the more you are conscious of God's presence, I want to ask you a question that will shed light further as regarding the things we are sharing tonight. If you have 2 brothers standing here, just imagine I have 2 brothers. One brother A here is not so conscious of God's presence, only becomes very alert to the presence of God anytime he is in church. He can roll on the ground, he can cry, whatever he does notwithstanding, but all of those things happen only within the 4 walls of the church. Another brother is ever conscious of God's indwelling presence on his inside, and so he carries that consciousness outside the wall of the church. Everywhere he goes, he knows that God is with him. Among these 2 persons here, if Satan creates a temptation in the office, who is likely going to overcome? It is this kind of realm that people like Joseph operated in. Because when temptation came, it came under the canopy of darkness. There was no human being watching them. It was only between Potiphar's wife and Joseph. No other person. So secrecy is only a weakness for those who don't carry the presence. If you are conscious of his presence, nothing is secret in his eye. Since you know that God is here, there is nothing that is a secret then. Anywhere Satan hide the matter and they are gisting in silence and they say it is in the inner room. No matter how inner it is, let the doors be closed, let the curtains be shut, let everything be suitable for immorality. A man who carries the presence. See the echoes that came out from Joseph. How can I do this great wickedness against God? So inside there was a consciousness of God's presence, that he is here, he is here. It was David that said, where can I hide from your presence? He says, even if I make my bed in hell, even there you are with me. Do you know how these men carried that presence? They were so conscious, so that in the day of temptation, you will gravitate towards who you are most conscious of. If the devil say fornicate, and you are most conscious of the lady in front of you or the guy in front of you than God on your inside, you will follow who you are most conscious of. If Jesus, it is Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 19. He was speaking to Ahab. He says, before the Lord Most High, whom I stand. It was Ahab that was in his front. Ahab is the person he's looking at. But he told Ahab, before the God that I'm standing at now. So he was standing first before God, before anybody like Ahab. So everything that will touch them, every reality that will come to them, they will first filter it through that God nature that is standing always before them. It was David that says, I have set the Lord always before me. You know what it means? God is his constant gaze. He looks through God before he sees you. I'm trying to say, you can wear God like a shade. It is God that is your lens. You look through him to see a person. If God becomes your lens, you cannot be looking with that eye of covetousness. You cannot be wishing bad for your neighbor. You cannot be wishing something bad for a person, because it is God that will interpret how you see. Your sight is interpreted by the Lord. The reason why when revival break out, even unbelievers become benefactors of that visitation. So even crime will reduce in the space. Godlessness will be blotted out. And everything that makes man gravitate towards wickedness, it will be attacked from the root, because God consciousness has entered man. These are part of the tokens of revival. Another thing that a consciousness of God does to you is that it gives you a boldness, a lifestyle of confidence and faith. He that is in me is greater. So there are only those who remember God when they are stirred. The moment you present any challenge to them, they will realize for the first time that they really did not trust God. Do you know that right now, as we're sitting here, there are people, the moment you just have the slightest headache, now, your first thought is Panadol before prayer. Meanwhile, in front of your jota is, by his stripes we were healed. You know it cognitively, but there is no practice in your life that shows that you are conscious of these things. So a great deal of people, they have not experienced God. They only hear about God. They come into his house to hear more about him, but they don't have any epignosis, experiential knowledge. They don't experience him. They heard about many things about him, but they still don't even know him. They are strangers to who he is. However, they are amassing knowledge day by day about who God is. There's a difference between knowing about me and knowing me. You can be asking all kinds of persons, who do you think F.I. Emmanuel is? Somebody can tell you, well, he's a very timid person, very calm, he's very shy as you see him like that. When they finish telling you, what you have as a knowledge of me is a third party's account. Everything they told you can be true until you meet me. Then you will now know me for yourself. The problem with hearing about God from a man is that everything they tell you about God will still fall short of his true visage. I did an experiment some months back. We were in church like this, and I went to a brother at that side. I whispered something in his ear, very clearly, not a long thing, just 7 words in a sentence. And I say, you whisper in the ear of one another until you reach that other person there. Everybody pass it, pass it. When he reached that last guy and I put mic in his mouth, it didn't sound like anything that I said from here. Meanwhile, we had a proof of what I said. I wrote it in a paper and said, you hold it. When this one that said it first finally heard what was said here, we realized that if all you know about God is what you heard from a man, by now you will be sent on a goose chase. Because as the information about God is passing from one man to another, everybody is editing it by his own lens, by his own understanding, and the limitations of his own mindset. So everybody is interpreting what God said based on his own understanding. Meanwhile, this message has journeyed from generations to generations. There are scriptures that have been interpreted just to suit the predicament of men. And so if you don't know God for yourself in a time as kairos as this, part of the things you will find out is that you are full of cerebral knowledge, but the consciousness and the fruits, the works, the proofs, the performance, they will be far from your life. You will be a very timid person in the face of crisis. That's where you will know that you are void of confidence that should come only by knowing God. The Bible says, but the people that do know their God. That knowledge there is as a man knows his wife. So he's not hearing, it's experiential. They will be strong and they will do exploit. But the criteria is know God. So do you know God?